All right, hello. It is Thursday, March 24th, 2016, and this is Marketing Live. I am your host, Amy Jorgensen. On today's live broadcast, we are learning about how to become a social media manager. This show is being broadcasted live at the University of Virginia with students interested in social media positions and to hired professionals worldwide. Marketing Live is part of a HigherEdLive network offering viewers direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Live webcasts allow viewers to share knowledge and participate in discussions around the most important issues in the industry. Today's live viewing experience is powered by Maestro, the premier marketing tech platform for broadcasters. All episodes of Marketing Live are free and accessible on the video archives at HigherEdLive.com and in podcast format on iTunes. Marketing Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. Are you preparing for a website redesign project? Knowing that your usual website needs an overhaul isn't the usual problem. Getting started is. Download M. Stoner's helpful 7-step checklist to get you started on the right path for successful marketing redesign. I would like to welcome all of our guests that are joining us today. We have Todd Sanders, the Director of Social Media for the University of Florida.
Hello.
Welcome, Todd. We have Cara Russinow. Did I pronounce that right?
Nope, it's Cara Russo.
Russo, I'm so sorry, Cara.
Okay.
We have her coming the social media and digital marketing strategy from Duke. Welcome, Cara. We're excited you're here. We have Megan Kennison. Help me out, Megan. Kennison. Fabulous. The Associate Director of Marketing at St. Lawrence University. We have John Lucas, the Executive Director of University Communications at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Welcome.
Hello.
And we have Amy Grace Wells, Content Strategy and Digital Strategy at the University of South Carolina. How are you guys all doing today?
Good.
Great. Doing well.
Well, we are very excited to have you all. So I'm going to be trying to manage the script that we have that's prepared for all of our guests, the students that we have live here at the University of Virginia, and any questions that you guys want to put on Twitter, #HigherEdLive. So if you guys have any questions here in the room, just raise your hand and I will jump in and ask them. So again, for those of you who are watching along, if you are on Twitter, use #HigherEdLive to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them as they come in. So first question, how did you get into being a social media manager?
Who would you like to field the question?
You started talking. Let's have you, Todd.
Oh, okay. When I went to school, there wasn't social media. There was hardly internet. And I got a degree in communication, emphasis in advertising. So I was a graphic designer and copywriter, and then became a webmaster. And then the social web came along, and I thought that had lots of potential. So that's how I got in this.
Very cool.
I was a lot like Todd. I was actually working at Ohio University at the time that kind of Facebook pages and Twitter came out, and I actually had an intern. So it was actually kind of a student that started talking to me about this Facebook thing and this Twitter thing. And so I was working for the College of Fine Arts, and we needed to market events to students. And so we kind of jumped in on it and started the first pages for the College of Fine Arts and the first accounts, and we just kind of you just jumped in, you know. I had a background in communications as well, and you know, we started, and I think a lot of us that are now in our 30s, we didn't have this when we were in undergrad, so it was something that we just used the skills that we did have, and we adapted.
Very cool. What about you, Cara?
Yeah, so Facebook launched for like 20 colleges my senior year of college, and UNC, where I attended undergrad, was one of those schools. So, you know, I was part of this weird experimentation of this like social network thing. I had a live journal in college. I don't know if y'all had one of those. It was like one of the first blogging sites. It is now private because it, you know, basically covered all of my exploits. I studied abroad in college life, and at that point, none of us were really thinking about censoring ourselves online. So it's just kind of interesting how things have progressed. But I was working for an economic development nonprofit in 2007, and my CEO kind of pointed to me and was like, "Hey, you're the youngest person here. Figure out this Twitter thing." I fell in love with community building and digital marketing, and here I am.
Awesome. What about you, John?
Very similar to Kara. I was a publicist and a media relations person here. Didn't really always want to write a big news release about some of the things we'd find, on the web, and it was around about the time that Facebook and Twitter were taking off, and just really similar that if you're the youngest person there, they just assume that you can kind of figure it out. Go over here, you can do this. You don't seem to be causing any harm with it, and then all of a sudden things snowball, and kind of one thing leads to another. So, just a really amazing community here.
Very cool. And Megan?
Yeah, I got back to St. Lawrence. I graduated in 2007, and I was a sophomore when Facebook was introduced to St. Lawrence, which was cool. And then I returned to St. Lawrence in 2012 to work here as a writer. And the media relations person in our office was the person who was handling social media for us for a while, and then some of her responsibilities shifted, and similar to a lot of the other experiences, I was the youngest in the office. I had an interest in it, and I think I also thought, well, this is my alma mater, this will be really easy. And they said, great, here you go. And all of a sudden, I had this whole world in front of me to sort of figure out for the university for the first time. So just jumped right in, and it's been a blast ever since.
So it sounds like a lot of you guys didn't go directly, none of you went directly from college into being a social media manager. So what would you say are some of the transferable skills that are necessary for the position that students can leverage and learn now? Let's start with Kara.
Yeah, so I think one of the transferable skills that I've learned in social media is relationship building. Especially when you work in higher ed, social media, everything is crazy decentralized. So we have like over 300 Facebook pages for different institutions and schools and departments. Like, that's not even counting all of your like student clubs and organizations. That's just like authentic
I think she's frozen.
With our institutional messaging, it's been really important for me to know, who to call, who to work with, who to collaborate with on campus. And that's not just a social media thing. That's like a life thing. And people who can build good relationships in the workplace are, I think, just by far more successful and set up for success when they can, know who to call, have those really good relationships, and know how to build bridges with different and even difficult parts of where you're working.
Awesome. So Todd, what do you think about that? What are some other transferable skills?
A lot of what we do is visual, so I think if you're good at photography or sketching and can put things together. Coming from an advertising background, that was kind of one of the things that really helped make things work. Playfulness, always learning, passion for what you're doing. But I mean, there are master's degrees in social media. I don't have one, and I'm able to do this, but I have a son who is going off to college, and he kind of wants to do this when he grows up, which I'm telling him not to do. But I'd rather him just
another generation. That's frightening.
So I think a communications degree is still decent, whether it's PR or journalism or whatever.
Yeah, I'd sort of echo that. I mean, I think you can always learn a platform, and the platform is always going to change, but I think there's a certain level of grounding and skill. I love what Kara was saying about, just relationships. I think there's something to be said for journalism or PR. Don't obsess yourself with the technology. Just kind of learn how to deal with people, learn how to ask questions, learn how to think.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. What about you, Meg?
I really agree with a lot of what they said about the community building aspect. I came back to St. Lawrence as a writer, and so I think having really strong written skills is really important in doing a lot of what we do, but also the ability to seek out stories. I think one of the things I've learned as a social media manager is that I'm front row to learning about a lot about our community and then trying to figure out which offices can be telling that story better. Is that a blog post? Is that a news release? Is that something on campus that more people need to know about in a different way than just an Instagram post where a student used like a hashtag or something? And so I think being able to critically think and look at, across social media platforms as you're listening to all the things that your community is you and talking about you, and then figuring out how else can we use that? Can you use that in admissions materials and alumni publications? Like, there's so many other opportunities, and so just being able to really open your eyes and go in that direction.
Awesome. What about you, Amy?
I definitely echo the always learning part that Todd said. Like, you know, especially, again, none of us were taught social media in college, and so these are platforms that are always changing. And anybody who says that they are an expert in social media, you know, it's either that because they are always learning that they are an expert, or they say they're an expert and it's one of those things, it's like, well, you know, are you? You know, if you're not constantly learning about these platforms, you're not going to be the expert tomorrow because they're changing so fast. And, you know, my background, you know, I don't have a journalism background. I have a communication studies background. It's a very theoretical background. And coming from it from more of a content strategy kind of framework is, you know, I really come at it from understanding your audiences and a little bit of that storytelling. So it's again, I echo what everybody else has said, but you take that and you really have to understand your audiences and understand what it is that they're looking for from you. Social media is more than just an info sharing. It is an experience sharing part of that marketing, and so it's emotional, and you have to kind of understand your audience and understand where they're coming from and what emotions they're looking for from you, and then kind of fit that editorial planning and fit that content in with what they're looking for. And you know, for us at University of South Carolina, you know, we had to deal with a lot of crises in 2015, and for us, a lot of our social media was just helping people get through those and understanding what they needed to know and understanding what we could tell them and help them through those types of experiences. And so, you know, I always go back to knowing your audience and knowing, you know, how they fit with what you have to share.
Awesome. So going back to some of the things that Todd said is the advertising background and being able to you know, take really good pictures, or do any of you have any graphic design experience and being able to do photography and things like that? We'll jump on with Todd.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I think we all do now with iPhones, right? So it's very powerful that we have access to something in the palm of our hand that can tell a story just as well as something, you know, 10 years ago that cost $500,000, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think as long as you're playing, as long as you're using these tools, you can figure this stuff out. It's not that complicated. What John does up in Madison, it's simple. It's really simple. I just messed with you, John. Bear still sucks.
I'm waiting for the $500,000 tool to accomplish it.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, definitely just play, kids.
So John, do you have a graphic design experience?
I've got a journalism master's degree, and then I managed to get out of undergraduate with an American Studies degree. So there's hope for everybody in there who was a college newspaper nerd. So I mean, I just kind of come into this as I've learned everything as we've gone. So yeah, I mean, I think like Todd says, you know, the sense of humor and sort of the ability to, you know, engage with people and just that kind of spirit, I think in a lot of ways is important as any of these other tools that you can bring to it, because I think a lot of them you can develop, or you can find other people in your office or your university that can help you with some of that.
Yeah, I think it's less about having like a specific skill set and more about being curious about developing, you know, whatever is needed to get the job done and to do cool things, right? So, I mean, like, I use my Photoshop Express app on my phone to do graphics. We use a really cool tool called Over for text overlay for Instagram photos. You can just, you know, be curious about what you're trying to do and learn as you're going along, and that would be my biggest piece of advice in our field. Is it's always changing, so we have to be eager to just learn and do new things.
Awesome. So, all right, you guys, a couple of you guys mentioned tools that you're using on your phone to be able to do graphic design and make your stuff look cooler. So, what tools are you using? So, I'm using, was it Snapseed? I love that for some light photo editing on my phone. And you mentioned, what was it again, Kara?
Sorry, I was muted. Over, O-V-E-R,
Okay,
is
cool.
an awesome app. I think it's a couple bucks, but sometimes it's free in the App Store. It's like a free app that's offered. And it lets you just put text in different font on top of graphics, and it makes them look nice and pretty and professional.
What about you, Amy? Do you have any different apps that you use?
So I'll use Canva. That's backwards, isn't it? Oh man.
No, it's straight.
Is it good? Woohoo! Props work. I'll use that on my desktop because I am probably the least visual person. You know, I can use Instagram filters to kind of play up the photo a little bit, but I am probably the least visual person. I can talk designer, I can use the programs, but I cannot design for anything. And so I know that, and so I'm always trying to learn from what others do. And so if you are not a visual person, you can still do this stuff. Just find great examples of what other people do and try to learn from what they do.
And you Canva do it yourself?
Yes, exactly.
I'm so proud of that. What about you, John? What do you use?
I'm out of the game. I feel this was like the best job I ever had, but on a day-to-day level, I'm chasing meetings, I'm trying to solve problems, and I've got a great, social manager who is doing it on a daily level, and I'm just trying to keep up with. I feel at some level I'm sort of missing out on all the fun. So.
Awesome. What about you, Meg?
After St. Lawrence, I worked as a graduate assistant in our sports information department, and so I was in charge of marketing 10 different teams, and I was in charge of doing their publications and all their posters and all that stuff. So I was lucky enough really early on to learn Photoshop, but never thought I'd ever need to use it again. And so now I am able to use that in my day-to-day job, which is helpful because I work in a really small shop. And so we have a graphic design team of 3 people, and a lot of times, we're still a very print-heavy campus, and so a lot of times I'm still doing some of those really quick graphics and different things that I need for social. And I absolutely agree with what Kara was saying, just like the eagerness to learn and try new things, and never say no to learning a new program or app or different idea. It always keeps you in the forefront of what everyone else is doing on social.
Awesome. And Todd, do you have any tools that you use on your phone for graphic design or social media, like make your posts more cool?
No, I don't.
I will say we just got a new social media strategist this week, which you should all follow her. She's CJ Lake. She just turned me on to GIF Creator. It is an app that lets you make your own GIFs on your phone, and she just fell in love with it this week. So I am excited to try that.
Very cool. All right, so what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned while managing social media? So what are some of the differences between managing your personal social media and managing the social media of a large brand?
I think that from the beginning, it was a very different type thing. It was sharing events. Trying to give a voice to the university on social was very intimidating, but I think times have changed, so the more human you can make the brand, the better it is. So I think if there's one thing I've learned over time is that the closer to how I'm using social as a human is the closer I want the university to be using social. So blurring that line so it doesn't exist.
What do you think, Megan?
I think the biggest lesson that I learned was just really early on when I came in and started doing social. I thought it would be really easy, and what I found was that our students weren't actually interacting with us at all on social platforms at the time that I was taking it over. So having to learn, like what Todd was saying about the voice, but then also making sure that our content wasn't overly marketing, like that it was authentic, that it was real, that it resonated with our audience. I think that was the biggest thing for us, was making sure that everything we were putting out on social really resonated with the audiences who were looking at it, and so they could buy in, so they would start adding their own content. So we had things to really start building that community in all of those spaces. That was probably the biggest thing that I learned early on.
Awesome. What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that I would say is just not to underestimate how much work it is.
Huh.
You know, it's for all of us who have done it. I was joking the other day that I like literally let children fall off playground equipment while I'm like posting a tweet or a Facebook post, or learn to perfect pushing a stroller and tweeting. And I mean, it's hard. I mean, we all know that you got to put in the time, almost to a 24/7 level to sort of keep up with it and really be dedicated to your community. But it's you got to impress on your coworkers too that it's a huge commitment of time and energy, and hopefully people have some resources out there where you can pair up with some student interns that help you monitor, can help post. But I have a lot of appreciation for people who do it here, just because it's not just as easy as push that tweet out. I mean, it's a commitment, and it takes a lot of dedication.
Excellent. What about you, Kara?
Yeah, to pile on to what John's saying, like I've found that managing my own personal presence is just exhausting after I'm looking at, the social media accounts and brand for Duke all day long. And I don't even do the content management anymore, but I'm watching it from a strategy perspective. And it's really important for me to have an online presence, both for my career and for professional development, and to be like identifiable to do things like this, for Amy to know to call me up and ask me to do this webinar. It's important for me to have a Twitter presence and my Instagram account, but sometimes it just feels like work to manage your own personal presence. So there is a certain amount of burnout. Like I tell my staff, like, it's really important to find a couple weeks a year to be able to totally turn off, your phone, your accounts, and to trust your colleagues that can help like balance and manage it for you. Because we're in a day and an age where it can totally take over your life, all of this digital technology stuff, and it's like not good for your health, y'all. So as much as you can, if you are working in the social media field, being able to have some kind of boundaries with your personal and professional accounts is really important.
Awesome. What about you, Amy?
Yeah, I think we've probably all experienced the burnout at some point. It's kind of an inevitable part of learning and making those boundaries. For me, I think the other thing that was really the eye-opener is, when something does go sour, and like I said, we dealt with a lot of crises in 2015, how mean people can be. Not that they always are, but how mean people can be when they can't see the person behind the account. And here in South Carolina in 2015, we dealt with issues such as the removal of the Confederate flag from the State House. Our campus happens to be a block away from the State House, and so we were involved in that conversation, and that was just one thing that happened. We had a natural disaster happen. We had a 1,000-year flood on campus, and that scares people. People are scared during that, like I was saying about emotions. And you got to have somebody on your team that you can talk to when people are emotional on social media, because they can say some really mean things when they can't see your face. And it's amazing sometimes when you can see their face on social media and they still don't care about what they're saying. And so just know that it's not directed at you. It's their emotions, and they're just trying to get their emotions out. But definitely have a way to talk to somebody about those types of things. And it's not an everyday occurrence. It's definitely not an everyday occurrence. But no matter what industry you're going in, you're probably going to have some critics. And so be prepared that it's not all happy and joyful all the time.
So Todd, out of curiosity, have you seen that as well at the University of Florida, like with, sporting events and things like that? If there been, I mean, I've seen some of it in the past, but I would love your insight if that continues to happen, talking trash from another school or saying negative things.
Yeah, we see it a lot. People are awesome, people are assholes. So what we try to do is embrace the positive and create positive things for people to share. And then if we get a troll that is just totally out there, Ryan, who works with me, does a nice little sketch up of them, and we put it on a wall, and we vent. But then we gotta let it go. We flush the toilet on that stuff because, I mean, like we're saying, we don't get any days off, or John does now, but the rest of us don't. So it is 24/7. I just took 3 days off this week. I worked every single day. So if you do get, you're doing a lot of work, kids, guys out there, you're doing a lot of work, and then if you get a troll who just totally like shatters everything that you're working on, it can be something that you need to let go of quick. Deal with it, do whatever you need to do, but then just forget about it. But keep their picture on the wall for a solid month.
So we talked about like some of the different ways in which people are communicating with us. So what social media platforms are you currently in charge of, or have you worked with, and how are you managing some of those? So like one of the hardest things that I see is we had a couple of things that happened over the past year at the University of Virginia that have been in the news and things like that, and seeing some of the comments on Yik Yak has just been shocking. So what platforms are you guys looking at? What platforms are you looking at but not using? What are you guys starting off with? Well, let's start off with Amy.
So as I said, we just got a new social media strategist who that's kind of, we haven't had a full-time person in social media for a few years now. So this is a huge transition. So we will be using a lot more platforms, I'm excited to say. I know that, again, her name is CJ Lake. If you want to follow her on Twitter, I'm giving her a shout out. I know she's super excited to get us into Snapchat because that's one area we've wanted to jump into. But I've mainly been focused on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram because those are the three that I've had time to invest in and keep consistent. We do LinkedIn. We really just post. Our goal is just to post weekly on LinkedIn on our university page. We monitor Yik Yak. I've actually posted something on Yik Yak on a day where there was we were having a student protest and people were starting to get a little nasty on LinkedIn. I posted something and signed it U of SC, and just kind of reminding people of our Carolinian creed and trying to calm things down a little bit. But mostly we just monitor it, and I monitor our campus story on Snapchat. But again, there's nothing really I can do about those, but I just try to keep an eye out on them and just to see what the campus climate is. So that's kind of what we're doing right now.
Awesome. What about you, Kara?
All of the above, and we also have been experimenting with Periscope and Facebook Live video. So Periscope, does everyone in the audience know what Periscope is?
No, enlighten us.
Okay, wonderful. It's a live streaming video app that Twitter actually acquired recently. And what happens is you go live with your video, you take it just from like your mobile device, and you can live stream, and there's a Twitter notification that goes out and says, hey y'all, we're live on Periscope right now from X, Y, and Z at Duke. And we have done everything from behind the scenes for our Duke Chapel renovation, a Periscope for that. We've done a 10-hour Periscope. Our English department read Milton's Paradise Lost for 10 hours straight, and they handed it off to different people, and we streamed that entire thing. So that was kind of us just testing the boundaries of like, how long can you go? And we are also doing a number of high-profile speakers who are here on campus via Facebook Live video. So yesterday, the Prime Minister from Estonia was on campus speaking. We did a live video on Facebook with him, and we had 7.9 thousand live viewers, which was really cool. Awesome. We're on Snapchat, but from a Duke student's perspective, we do not have a university account because I just couldn't figure out how to make it interesting from an institutional perspective. So we have students who are running our @Duke student Snapchat account. And then finally, a space that we're in that a lot of United States higher ed is in China. So we have a presence on WeChat, which is a big group messaging, kind of like a GroupMe or WhatsApp type of thing. We have a presence on Weibo, which is kind of like the Twitter for China, and then we also have a Youku channel, which is for video uploading, kind of like YouTube. So we're learning a lot about China. I don't speak Mandarin, so we really rely on students to do the translation and the monitoring of those accounts.
So on those accounts, are you posting in English or are you posting in Mandarin?
We do bilingual. We do both English and Chinese posting. And then we also do a lot of translating captions and subtitles and stuff on video into Chinese characters.
Very cool. So, and I love that you brought up the Snapchat portion. Is like so often I feel like in higher ed, and y'all can let me know if I'm way off base here, that folks are like, oh, there's this new tool, you've got to use it, and you've got to implement it for your whole university. And it's one of those things where it's like you either do it really, really well, or you just should not do it at all because you can't do something half-assed. So if you end up like, we started a Snapchat for the Career Center at the University of Virginia, and it's like, who wants to look at a Snapchat from the Career Center at the University of Virginia? And the answer was 10 people, that was it. And so we wanted to look at other avenues to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. So I saw you shaking your head. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in that position right now. I think we've got a limited shop and so many platforms to staff, and I think that's always the hard part. You want to go kind of with something hot and sort of learn about it. We've always advocated trying to pilot things, let people try them out personally and see if there's a return, on the amount of time and energy you can put into it. But it's sort of our belief, I think, like everybody else's, that you either have to own it and see it through, or else you probably shouldn't take it on to begin with.
Awesome. So are Meg or Todd, are you guys using any other platforms that we haven't already addressed?
There's Yeti, but we don't really use it. We just monitor it. It's kind of sketchy. But it's like what Snapchat was before they wanted to raise funds, I guess. Very sketchy. But yeah, and then we do Yik Yak for real time to see if there's anybody chiming in on a crisis or what's going on, just like to take the pulse. Awesome. And then we used to do a weekly challenge where we'd submit things to see if we could get to the top of Yik Yak, and we have. So.
We're not on any additional channels besides the ones that everyone mentioned, but I did want to say something a little bit about Snapchat. We are a campus so small, we don't have a campus story, and so when we launched our university Snapchat account in January, students didn't really know how it was used or how it worked, so we got some very interesting snaps for the first few weeks sent to the account, everyone thinking that it was like a campus story, like when they visit UVA or when they visit Florida or see their friends out at BU or BC. So it was a very interesting first few weeks for us. My students are helping me manage it, but it's something that I'm really excited about as a platform for colleges and universities.
Awesome. So how do you decide which new platforms are useful for students, for your audience? Let's jump into Todd.
We just play with everything, I guess. I got the Peach app. You guys got the Peach app? That was fun, right? Was it Beam? Beam was a fun one. Beam was hilarious. That worked out great. No, we try to play with everything. And I got Ryan here. Hey, Ryan, come over. Say hi, Dave, real quick. This is the sketch artist guy. Get down lower. There you go. Sadu. Yeah, so Ryan brings a fresh perspective. He's younger than I am. I'm 43. Thank you, everybody who said they were in their 30s. That was fun. So he's on tap. So he knows things that I don't know. So we see things. We play on things. We figure them out. We try to get there before others get there. We think that social media is kind of like jumping islands. Wherever all the adults are, all the kids have jumped to another island, and they're trying to figure out the resources there. So what we do is we do a lot of island hopping. It's a Florida term. So we get there before the others get there, figure out the lay of the land, so that when they get there, we don't look like old people.
I like that that your assistant there has almost like kid and play hair. Like how did that?
Whoa! Don't mess. They're talking about your haircut, bro.
What?
Yeah, that's what I think too. We do kid and play. We do the kid and play.
I can't hear.
Can't hear. Can't hear.
Can't hear.
Can't hear.
My hair. Can't hear.
Awesome. What about you, Meg? How do you decide what platforms you're going to be using for your university?
Yeah, we are primarily on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but we're also on Snapchat and LinkedIn. The Snapchat thing, and we're such a small campus, and I have a group of student social media team members, and I know some of them are watching right now, so I'm going to give them a shout out. They help keep me in the know on what students are using and what they're not using, and what I do is, like when Snapchat came out, I got on there personally to sort of figure it out for myself, so I could at least have conversations with people about it, and having conversations about getting on that platform for 18 months before we actually did it. And so I think that was a really important movement for us, but the students were the ones 18 months ago who were saying it's not time yet. We're not ready. The campus isn't ready to have a university Snapchat account. But move through 12 to 16 months later, and they said, I think the students would really open up and really embrace this opportunity. And so they really keep me in tune. And so if you're ever working in higher ed social media, the students are 100% the way to know what students are and aren't using.
Yeah, work directly with your audience. That's smart.
Hey, Amy, I just wanted to chime in. I mean, in terms of platforms and everything, I think the one thing that gets overlooked sometimes is what are you trying to get out of it, and what are you trying to do there? I mean, it's more than just operating on a daily basis and just kind of posting fun content. But I think one thing that gets overlooked quite a bit is how do you kind of connect the platform up to goals that you got as an institution, and that's something that I've been trying to push more for in recent years. I mean, it's absolutely important to have a daily voice and a presence and engage with folks, but at some level you got to think of what platform is going to talk to your prospective audiences, or where are your alums congregating, what are you trying to do there at a higher level. And I think that's where students particularly can think a little bit more above just the basic skill level or the platform operation, and kind of know the field a little bit, know where some of those audiences tend to congregate, and then what do you hope to achieve in those different spaces. So trying to take it maybe 2 levels up is something that I don't think any of us have enough kind of time and bandwidth to do.
Awesome. Does anyone else have anything to contribute about how you decide to use a platform? Do you kind of agree with what's already been said?
I guess if we have to agree.
Awesome. So we did get a great question online on Twitter, and again, if anyone has any questions for our panel, please tweet us using hashtag HigherEdLive. It's from Angie Roberts, and she says that it seems that you all have communication degrees of some sort. Yes, social is learn as you go, but do you think a degree in communications is important?
I can respond. Hi, Angie. Nice to see you on here. She's a friend. So I actually was an economics and political science double major, and communications wasn't a field that I was interested in. I ended up getting my MBA in marketing eventually, but I don't have any kind of a writing or journalism or PR background. I kind of just learned by doing. And I think that gets to my point earlier about just being curious and being kind of a life learner in these fields, and always trying to grow your skill sets where you see them needed or enhancing what you're doing.
Cool. I think John mentioned you have was it American History degree?
American Studies.
American
I was a football player major, so I got to hang out with some pretty awesome guys as an undergraduate. But I did get a journalism master's, so I think you can do this work with a lot of different backgrounds. I don't think I would get hung up on that. I think it really is like what we said earlier. It's about the kind of person you are and kind of personality and the willingness that you have to sort of be flexible and throw yourself into all sorts of situations.
Awesome. All right, great. So going back to the social media tools, what tools are you guys using to manage social media? Do you have any tips for other folks? Let's start off with Todd. What are you using to manage social media? Hootsuite or?
Yeah, we don't do any of that. We go natively to where we're posting. I think that if you're doing the heavy lifting, you need to get sweaty. I think it is easy to schedule things. Automation's evil. That's my thing. But when Ryan first got here, he was using Hootsuite a lot, and I was like, well, TweetDeck. He was using TweetDeck to monitor stuff. I don't know, man. I just learned from the beginning how to do it like old school, and I like the having it be more burdensome, I guess, because that's just how I do it. I mean, I don't use Hootsuite for my personal myself, to schedule my stuff. So I don't do it for.
Todd's got a flip phone.
I used to have a flip phone. Yeah, I was probably the last person here to get an iPhone. I only had an iPhone maybe 2 years. But yeah, I didn't even have a cell phone before that, but my kids did. So that was cool. Thanks, John.
What about you guys? Anyone using any type of the platforms? I mean, one of the things that I like about Hootsuite is you get a whole bunch of analytics in there, and it can tell you about, what your audience is talking about in your geographic area and things like that. So are you guys using any other tools, or?
We use Sprout Social. It's a lot like Hootsuite. Am I back? Can everybody hear me again?
Yeah.
My tab froze up there. So we use it. It provides us the ability to listen to a lot more. So we can pull kind of brand keywords. So not only can we watch our mentions and things like that, but we can watch just people that mention USC within 25 miles of Columbia. And we can see everything there. We can see anything that people mention our president's name in on Twitter. So it allows us to watch a lot more of the conversation. We still post things natively, but we use that a lot for our analytics and for our listening, just to be able to gather everything in that one place and know a lot more of the conversation.
Very cool. All right, great. So how do you guys develop some of your social media strategies? How do you figure out what you're going to be talking about and how to build some of the audiences and all that kind of good stuff? Megan, let's jump into you.
Oh, what the hard one. Thank you. So, I look at the calendar year. I try to break it up into chunks, knowing what time of year it is. So, like right now for us, this week was the week where our prospective students were receiving their acceptance letters in the mail. And so knowing that, that's coming up, and then knowing that over the next 6 weeks they're going to be making decisions, so this is a key content time for us to be showing why we're unique, how we're different from some of the institutions that we overlap with. And so just looking for those types of things in the schedule. And I think that's one of the good things about higher ed in some ways, is that things are somewhat cyclical. You always have like a move-in weekend, you always have orientation, you always have like some of those like big campus events. We're not a football school, we're more of a hockey school, so we have big rivalries in hockey, we plan things around that. And so keeping that sort of calendar, and then I fill in based on news and other events. But just knowing the ebbs and flows of a calendar year here is really important. And then just being flexible. I get a lot of people who want to see plan schedules for months and months out in advance, and I can know some really big things that are coming up. But there are always going to be those big things that pop up, in an hour. And so you have to be able to be really flexible for all of that too.
Awesome. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think you kind of break it up into different tracks, right? I mean, there's just that sort of give and take engagement that's just because people are talking about certain things. There's a certain level of content promotion that we're doing just around all the content that comes out of our shop. There's kind of a thematic level, where we know we want to talk about diversity or admissions or research or our value to the state. And then, then you try to overlay, I think, occasionally some of these bigger projects and bigger efforts on top of that. So I think the thing we found is that there's not really a tool that we've used yet that can accommodate all of that. And, a lot of it is kind of in the moment and it's kind of flexible. But just trying to, get our arms around it all is just a constant struggle, despite, a lot of people trying to, keep calendars and stay organized. That's one of the central challenges, I would say, of the job.
Awesome. What do you think, Amy?
So I may come at it in a slightly different way just because of my role here. So as the content strategist, I am actually setting a lot of the priorities, not only for social media, but actually for our writers and for all of the content that we're producing. And so really that plays into everything we're doing on social. But as far as social specifically goes, we try to develop, or what I've tried to do is develop specific audiences for each platform. So we know, for example, on Facebook we get the best engagement out of parents and alumni. And so if we need to target a message on Facebook, to students, we'll actually kind of target it a little bit more to parents, because what we know will happen is if we need students to hear about something and we want to post it on Facebook, the parents will then tag their kids in the comments. And so we know if we want students to hear about it on Facebook, we'll target it to the parents, and that's how we'll do. So, you know, we try to make sure that we have a primary audience for each platform, and then we use the content strategy to kind of help guide us on what are those key messages, what are those key university messages that we're trying to get across, that we're trying to push, and that's how we'll kind of take, that's kind of the first step, and then it goes down into the editorial planning from there.
Awesome. What about you, Kara?
I mean, I would just totally echo especially what John and Amy just said. We spent a lot of time thinking about right-sizing content and thinking about, okay, so we've got this maybe 3-minute YouTube video. How do we also break it up into clips? How do we do a 15-second clip for Instagram? How do we upload it to Facebook? Because we know that video uploads perform better than a YouTube link. So in addition to thinking about the channels and who's using them and how to get them there, we're also thinking about the best way to put our stuff up there, to be seen, to be viewed, to be interacted with in the most optimal way.
Awesome. And Todd, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very large institution with very lofty goals, but one of the goals, social media-wise, or strategy, is to remain relevant, so that when we have to help the university with their bigger message, that people still want to tune in and hear it. So we, you know, it's not a numbers game, but we definitely have to grow our audience and maintain it and keep them engaged, so that when the university-wide strategies need to be implemented, we actually have a channel that people are paying attention to. So there's lots of moving pieces.
Awesome. So, and we do have an online question from one of my most favorite people, Dr. Liz Gross. She says, do your senior leaders expect data/measurement of your efforts and successes? And if so, what do you provide? Todd, do you want to jump into that?
Sure. I've been here 2 years almost, so when I first got here, I changed things up a little, so I had to provide monthly reports until they were comfortable that we were moving in a positive direction. And now I have a new boss, so I will be generating more reports. The problem with a lot of the measuring, especially if you're a one-person shop, we're now a two-person shop, or 2.5-person shop, so it's a little easier now to do this stuff, but it does take away time from actually the boots on the ground doing stuff. So it's depending on what your goals are, if you can just show the people that want to see those things, that you're moving in a positive direction, with some analytics behind it. They love pie charts and things like that.
Awesome. What about you, Megan?
Yeah, I generate a monthly report for my vice president to sort of explain why we're doing things in a certain way, to justify, decisions in terms of, shifts that we might be making in terms of content creation or strategy. It's always great to have the numbers behind you to sort of to be able to tell your story. I actually took a course with Liz Gross about analytics and about data and about how to make a story out of them so that people understand why they matter. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me is I'm really interested in all the data, and it's very valuable, but then being able to communicate that to people above you who may not even understand social media, who said, well, why, that post did great, it got 100 likes, and I said, but nobody clicked the link. That's not successful for me. And being able to, I think data in a lot of ways has really helped higher ups who may not necessarily understand the social landscape better understand the value it has to the university than it did maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Please, John.
No, I was just going to chime in. I think one of the things that we all do on a regular basis, and I think people who are coming into this field should think about, is that there is a lot of education that you do need to do. I mean, I love our senior staff and everything, but the times they interact with social tends to be around really specific issues or problems. There's this hate graffiti that's posted, or somebody is very unhappy with us, it's less frequent that they're sort of seeing the organic value of, you know, how we post or how we engage with audiences. So, you know, I think getting people a little bit more comfortable in the social mindset at that level, not being ageist about it in any way, but I find the people that I've worked with over time tend to be much more kind of Facebook users. They put a toe into Twitter because I think they can get a lot of information. But then as you drop down through Instagram and, you know, some of the, you know, Snapchat messaging, really very little familiarity with things like that. So I think that's on us, you know, to help people understand, you know, what the platforms are and, you know, what the utility is.
Awesome. So we are running very close on time, so I want to ask one last question for you all, if that's okay. So what advice do you have for someone looking to become a social media manager? Let's start off with Amy.
I would say definitely, you know, if you still have time in your undergrad program, and you are an undergrad, look for internship opportunities. I've worked with interns for a decade now, and a lot of mine have moved into roles that have given them opportunities to do social. If you're already a professional, just volunteer. That's how, you know, in my first job, I was an editorial assistant at a magazine, and I volunteered to help with the web, and that's how I became, you know, the marketing manager for the web. And it's really just about offering up and getting involved. And if you can't get involved at work, get involved with an organization that you care about in your community. And just, you know, like everybody else has said, like Todd has said, like just try these out on your own, and just get in there and get some experience.
Awesome. What about you, Kara?
I would say find one or two people who you want their job in 5 to 10 years, and get to know them as well as you can, connect with them as well as you can, and figure out how they got to where they are. That's how, you know, I've mapped out a lot of my career, is just looking down the road and finding someone who's maybe 5 years ahead of me and saying, like, okay, so how did you get there? What kind of education, what kind of networking, what kind of skills did you build? And just, I mean, like, people who are successful actually really like doing informational interviews and helping people out, because they got to where they are because of someone else helping them. So I would say, like, don't be afraid to approach someone or ask for help.
Awesome. And John?
Yeah, people are incredibly kind and generous in this field. I mean, everybody that I've met over time, you know, if you're a student and, you know, you go and you tweet somebody or send them an email, almost everybody would give you 20 minutes. I really like the idea of trying to, like, prove that your ability in the field by, like, attaching yourself to, like, a community group, a church, a blood bank. I mean, there's so many, like, worthy organizations that need, like, social media help from people that understand it. So, you know, it's really easy, I think, to find a good organization and then create a little plan for them and try to execute it. I think you're much more likely to get hired in a university or in the private sector with a little bit of that under your belt.
Awesome. Thank you. And what about you, Meg?
I have to agree with a lot of what Amy and Kara said about, you know, interns and whatnot. I think we have a lot of students on campus who start social media accounts for clubs and organizations, and so like John was saying, like, coming up with a plan for those. Also, I think using your personal accounts to your advantage. You know, you hear a lot about, like, digital identity and, you know, how to build, like, a personal brand on social media. You know, we have some students who have gotten jobs because they started an Instagram account about how much they love breakfast, and they made it into something where thousands and thousands of people are following it. And I think that you can have a lot of fun with social media, but then when you get into an interview, it's more about not necessarily talking about breakfast, but how you were critically thinking about using social media to your advantage. So, like, we have a student-run Instagram account where a different student runs it each week, and I have students who say, I want to go into PR and marketing. And even though I have no control over their content for the week, I help them with some tips on how to think about it strategically, whereas I don't necessarily always have those conversations with just every student. And then afterwards, I encourage them to think about what they would do differently, and that's the talking point in an interview. You know, you can take any opportunity on social and make it into something that would really boost yourself and boost your resume and boost your experience with any or all platforms.
Awesome. And Todd, closing us out, what What advice do you have for folks that want to become social media managers?
Apply to social media manager positions. I mean, it's relatively new. As long as you know what you're talking about, I mean, people hire on personality, people hire on initiative, people hire on a really good interview. So just apply to lots of places and get comfortable interviewing.
Awesome. Very cool. So I hope you all had did you guys get a lot of your questions answered? Fabulous. I'm getting a lot of shaking heads here. They're all very happy here at the University of Virginia. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and being our guests. That was fantastic. And thank you to everyone, and especially our program sponsors, M. Stoner and Funnelback. We love you guys. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure to check out more shows from Higher Ed Pros on HigherEdLive.com. See you next time.